Hello and welcome to Mr. Smith History. Imagine it's October 1962. The world is holding its breath and one wrong move could mean nuclear war. This is the story of the Cuban Missile Crisis. 13 days when humanity was closer to the brink of destruction than ever before. Why did it happen? How was disaster avoided? And what can we learn from it today? Let's have a look. The Cuban Missile Crisis didn't come out of nowhere. It was a chapter in the Cold War, a decades-long standoff between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. After World War II, the world was divided into two camps, capitalist nations led by the US and communist nations led by the USSR. The Cold War wasn't fought with soldiers but with threats, espionage and an arms race. By the early 1960s, both sides had nuclear weapons capable of massive destruction. The big question was, who would blink first? Let's have a look at Cuba. In 1959, Fidel Castro led a revolution that overthrew Cuba's government. Soon after, he declared Cuba a communist state and allied with the Soviet Union. For the US, this was a nightmare. Imagine having your biggest rival set up shop 90 miles from your shore. The US tried to get rid of Castro through a failed invasion of the Bay of Pigs in 1961. Afterwards, Castro grew even closer to the Soviet Union, setting the stage for the crisis to come. Fast forward then to October the 14th, 1962. A U-2 spy plane flying over Cuba captured photographs of Soviet missile sites under construction. These weren't ordinary weapons though. They were nuclear missiles capable of hitting major US cities in minutes. President John F. Kennedy and his advisors were shocked. If these missiles became operational, the balance of power would shift dramatically. Kennedy had to act, but how? Kennedy faced a dilemma. Option 1, launch an airstrike to destroy the missile sites, but that could lead to full-scale war. Option 2, negotiate with the Soviets, but that might make the US look weak. And after intense debate, Kennedy chose option 3, a naval blockade, which he called quarantine, to stop more Soviet weapons from reaching Cuba. So this wasn't just a military move, it was a high-stakes game of chess. Would the Soviets back down, or would they call America's bluff? For 13 days, the world watched in terror. Soviet ships carrying more missiles headed towards Cuba, while US Navy ships enforced a blockade. Meanwhile, secret messages flew back and forth between Kennedy and the Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev. Finally, on the 28th of October, Khrushchev agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba. In exchange, the US promised not to invade Cuba and secretly agreed to move American missiles from Turkey. The crisis was over. The Cuban Missile Crisis taught us many lessons. First, diplomacy and communication are crucial, especially in a nuclear world. The crisis led to the installation of a direct hotline between Washington and Moscow to prevent future misunderstandings. It also showed the importance of thinking carefully before acting. Both Kennedy and Khrushchev made decisions that avoided war, despite immense pressure from their advisors. The Cuban Missile Crisis then reminds us that even in our darkest moments, cooler heads can prevail. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, if you are interested in more history, please do check out the channel. Please like and subscribe to get stuff straight into your feed. Thank you. Goodbye.